Alright guys, welcome to your 65th C++ tutorial, and in this lesson I'm just going to be giving you guys a couple tips when working with files, and this is, something that can save you time as well as some good programming practice. So it's going to save you a lot of headaches in the future. So let me go ahead and get started. So in the last tutorial I told you guys that in order to work with files, you first need to do two things. You need to create a file object, and then you need to associate that object with a file itself on the computer. So let's go ahead and instead of doing that in 2 lines of code, let me show you guys how to do it in 1 line of code. So of course you need your OF stream because that's what object we're going to be making in order to work with files, and then you give your object a name like Bucky's file. And then you might be thinking, alright, just go ahead, put a semicolon, go to the next line of code, put Bucky's file, open the file you want to work with. But there's an easier way to associate this object with a file. Now, whenever you create a file object, it takes an optional parameter in the constructor. Actually, the entire constructor is optional, but if you want, you can go ahead and do this all in 1 line of code by associating a file by passing it into the constructor, and then whenever you create your object, it's going to associate that file with this object. So for example, let's go ahead and make a file name beef jerky.txt. And now instead of creating your object on 1 line of code and then associating the file with this object on another line of code, we can just go ahead and pass the file name into the constructor, and now this file is associated with this object. So it's probably better to get used to this syntax unless you're making a program where you don't know what file is going to be associated with this object whenever you're running it. So usually I like to do it this way just because it saves you a line of code, and again, this constructor is optional, but trust me, it's going to save you a whole bunch of time in the future. So now you can do things like Bucky's file, and then just go ahead and output something stupid like I love the beef. And it says, ooh, I love the beef, but good enough. And then go ahead and might as well add a new line and end that. Get my cursor out of the way. And then, of course, it's good program practice to have Bucky's file.close to free up any of our computer's resources. So let's go ahead and actually watch this file get made. So I'm going to go ahead and press run. And oh man, it closed it out. But anyways, you can see now that we have a beef jerky text file. So let's go ahead and click that, and it says, ooh, I love the beef. And I do love beef jerky. Can't lie about that. So let's go ahead and before I let you guys go, I want to tell you guys one more thing. A function that you're going to be seeing a lot if you're working with a team of developers, or if your teacher gave you an assignment working with files, is some function called isOpen. Now, isOpen is a function that you can use on a file object, and it's going to return true if the object is currently associated with a file. And this is a way that you can check basically if a file is open and it's ready to be worked with. So in order to do this, go ahead and write if, and then you do this. Write your file object, which is in this case Bucky's file, and then write your function right after it is underscore open. Now this isn't going to take any parameters, and just go ahead and write something. If the file is open, then we'll just output on the screen like okay, the file is open. Good enough. And then might as well go ahead and end that line. And we'll say else if the file is not open, then let's just go ahead and output like Bucky, you messed up, and we'll spell everything wrong, and looks good to go. So go ahead and end that line. So now what's going to happen is this. Alright, we coded this line correctly, and it did indeed open this beef jerky text file. So whenever we check if the file is open, this is open really isn't a good name. It really should be like if object is associated with a file. That might be a better name for this, but that would be a lot of text. So what this line is going to do is it's going to check if this object is associated with a file. If it is, which it is, it's going to output, okay, the file is open. If it's not and we did something wrong, it's going to say, Bucky, you messed up. So let's go ahead and run this, and indeed we get, okay, the file is open. So you're saying, all right, so when would be the case scenario when the file wouldn't open? Well, for example, if you go ahead and you made, your file object correctly, but you forgot to associate it with a file right here, then whenever you try to run it, it's going to say, hold on, Bucky, you messed up. You forgot to associate your object with a file. So that is a case scenario where we would want to check if the file is open or not. And basically, in programming, well, in the real world, how it works is this. You make sure it's open first, and then you write all your code right here. So it's a nice little check before, you just start writing code like this. This is probably would be better if we threw it inside here, you know. So if you wanna, impress your boss or your teacher, just make sure your files are open before you start doing a bunch of crap to them, or else, it's gonna save you a lot of headaches. So with that being said, in this tutorial, I just want to stress to you guys that there is indeed an optional constructor where you can associate a file with the object instead of putting it on two lines of codes. And also, what you can do is it's a better programming practice to make sure your file is open, and by that I mean make sure your file is associated with the object before you start doing a whole bunch of crap to it. It's going to save you some time and save your computer a whole lot of headaches. So with that being said, that's all I have for you guys for this tutorial. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you have any questions still, check out my forum, thenewboston.com/forum, and yeah, I'll see you there. So thank you guys, and I'll see you next video.